Okay, today we're going to talk about implementing Vuex and Vue in the same basic project. One of the things I've noticed, especially with myself, is that I kind of was hesitant to get into Vuex because, really I enjoy programming in Vue, and I needed to learn how information traverses from uh, component to component. So, we had a main component, we'd put a component in it, we'd use props to come down into the component, we'd emit events back up to the main component, and if that component needed to talk to a sibling, we would then have a method on the main component, and then handle that through a prop down through the second component, and then event back up. That's really it's important in the learning aspect of it, but as far as trying to get something production, that's really not efficient and can get really messy. And as your application gets larger and larger, well, it's going to be almost impossible to maintain. So what we have is we have Vuex as our state management system, and it's so easy to put into the system. Unlike in React and the multiple uh, state management systems that React had, whether it be Movex or Redux, Redo, however you want to say it. They were, because they started off with the Flux thought process. I didn't really understand Flux. It was not it's not a piece of software. It was an idea, and I didn't have the knowledge at the time to understand that type of modularity. Of course, now we're a little farther along, and modularity is everywhere. Webpack is a required tool almost in JavaScript front end programming. Obviously, it's not absolutely required. We can still script out longhand inside the page, and for certain applications, I'm assuming that's absolutely fine. I don't do that anymore. I used to. I loved it with Angular 1. That was my introduction into these framework systems, and it was fun, and it was quick to create stuff. And then Angular 1 turned into Angular 2, and I didn't like it. So I went over to React, and I loved React as far as the component construction. And once I learned how we did the the propagation of information through props and, of course, events, which is the same way that Vue does it. That became really fun, except that I didn't have state management like I did in Angular 1. Of course, Vue now merges those systems, has state management both at the component level, above the component level, and, of course, in its total store system, its version of Flux. But I wanted to show you how easy it is to both create a project, and that you should just dump the store in it almost every time you create it. I would actually prefer that they did that in the scaffolding of the system when they bring in the CLI, is just to ask you if you want Flux. It's part of the primary program. It's not a third-party program per se, like Redo or Redux or Movex or anything like that. It's built by the same people, and I just think it should be part of the system, and just go ahead and scaffold it out for you. There's no reason not to. But let's go ahead and do it real quick. I mean, it takes literally 3 minutes if I'm not talking to do. So let's go ahead and just initiate a new Vue program. I'm using WebStorm, so I've already started a new project. It really is as simple as doing project, file, new project, naming it, and that's where I'm at. I haven't done anything in the background or anything to hide something that you may need to know to get us going. So WebStorm has a built-in terminal that obviously grabs the Windows terminal, in this case Windows, So one of the reasons I really like WebStorm and PHP Storm is the fact that they really kind of just pack everything into one IDE, and it really is integrated. Whether I'm doing my node package, npm node package manager, or modular system, and I want that brought out in scripts to the terminal to the database, it will pack individual files. So if you are a scripter, that one person who puts the script directly into the page, you can have WebStorm can minimize those for you and put them in min files, and obviously babble down the 2015 and the ES6. So it's a great program. Both of them are. I love them. They're very convenient. But anyway, so we're gonna go into our terminal, and we're gonna do, let's do view init webpack. And in this particular case, because I've already started a project, I've already created the folder that it's going to be in, I'm just going to leave this blank. So if you do view init webpack and leave off the package name, it will ask you if you want to do it in the same folder that you're already in, and I'm going to say yes. If you are using a straight terminal, obviously you need to add the folder name or the package name, both synonymous, and it will create that for you. And then of course you'd have to change directories and go into it. But I'm already in the directory I want to be in, so I'm just going to hit enter. First thing it's going to ask me is if I want to create the project in the folder that I'm in, and the answer is yes. So then we've got the project name, we've got the project description, we've got the author. All of them defaulted on my system. I'm sure they're going to be defaulted to you. They don't. They certainly don't matter in a tutorial. Runtime and compiler, I'm going to go ahead and install both of those because I don't want any problems with hot reloading. I always install the view router. Always install the view router. It's just something I don't want to do later ever. So even if I'm doing templates and I know I'm not going to use it, I'm going to install the view router. ESLint I do not because I have problems with semicolons. So my semicolons typically don't end up in the right spot for ESLint to like them, and that's just old school. All right, and we're going to do no testing on this, obviously. All right, so now we've got our scaffolding done. And we can look here, and we can see the scaffolding. There's no node modules in here, so we need to obviously run the npm install to go ahead and bring in our dependencies. So, and of course it's asking us if we want to run that. I'm just going to shut that down so we can do it by hand. Npm install. And while that's installing, we've got a nice little trick that WebStorm and PHP Storm allow us to do, which is to abstract the scripts out of a package.json file and put them into the GUI, into the GUI, so that you don't have to type it every time. You know, some of them are self-starting, but some of them can be long. You know, especially if you're doing long scripts. And these are pretty short, but I don't want to type them out. So we can just go to our package.json file and show our scripts. So give it a second, it'll populate here. Do a refresh. There we go. And it's just populating the scripts here from our package.json file. Now we have a completely running Vue program application. I'm going to go ahead and just CLS this out. And the easiest way to start it is just double click on our dev. If you're running in a terminal and you're not using PHP Storm or WebStorm, you can just type npm run dev, 3 words, npm run dev. And I'm assuming you already know this because we're doing a Vuex tutorial. Okay, so we've got Vue installed, no Vuex, but we've got Vue installed. It's a completely running application. It's running a router. I'm going to turn on the inspector real quick because we don't want it caching. And as you can see, there's no problems or anything, even though it may show up that it's missing a favicon or something like that. But it's a completely running application, but we don't have any outside state management. And you know, if all you're doing is building a component, then you don't need the store, obviously. But if you're going anywhere beyond that, then having a store is just better do it now, eat the frog as it were, and go ahead and get it done. That way, you know, you're not building something you get tunnel visioned in, and you start writing a bunch of props and events to handle something that the store really should be. And then once you go back to move all that, or you know, moving that into the store, that it becomes well, difficult, because it's hard to follow sometimes props that create events that emit up to the primary that may adjust something else. It's the whole reason state management and the store system was developed, is because it's difficult to try and follow some of those, and when you have a bug, or just moving them to a different area, or renaming them, can be just a spaghetti system gone wild. Anyway, so we've got our basic system, and the first thing we're going to want to do now is go ahead and add Vuex. So we're going to bring up our terminal right here, and npm install Vuex, and we're going to save that to the package manager. And because it's part of the primary program, we're doing save instead of save dev. All right, it's all done. So to utilize that, we're going to go into our source system, and we're going to add a file, and it's just going to be store.js. And from here, we're going to go ahead and bring in Vuex. So we'll just start with import view from view, and import Vuex from, oops, stop form, from Vuex. We're going to put it into the view, implement it into the view system. So we're going to do view.use Vuex. That's one of those lint problems right there. It doesn't like that. And WebStorm and PHP Storm want it, so it's easier for me to get rid of lint than it is for me to fight my IDE sometimes. All right, so now we're going to create the component. So, you know, we're going to export a component. It's going to be a constant. We're going to call it store. It's going to equal a new object, a new class, vuex.store, which is the constructor of it. And there we go. We've got our new class created, and now we need every store, every Vuex implementation needs state. So you can't. This is not optional. It's the only thing it has to have, but it has to have it. So we'll start with state, and now you have a complete store. It's completely functional. We can implement this into our primary system at any point in time, but I want to go ahead and finish the scaffolding of this out. I really don't. You could use this as it is and mutate the variables in the state, but it's not recommended. And there's a number of reasons why, not only future modularity and expansion and readability, but also because you're mutating the store state, and you bypass all of the functionality of time travel and some of the protections that you get from having kind of getters and setters within the system. And if you don't know what time travel is, in the store system, you can look at that. If you have the Vue extension installed in Chrome, which you should, right there, then you can always look at the store right here. Of course, we don't have a store because we haven't implemented into our main app, even though we have it abstractly to the side. But if you don't have the Vue extension, definitely put that into your Chrome developer browser. And I'll show you how that works in a few. So we start with state, and we need 4 items. We need state, we need getters, we need mutations, and we need actions. And that will complete our store. It will be a fully functional and properly scaffolded store. So, but I'm gonna go ahead and, as we scaffold it out, I'm gonna go ahead and add some just a pretend one event system. So let's just say we're gonna put in a variable like is true, and we're gonna name that with a colon, not semicolon, true. We're gonna start it off right there, true, and we're dealing with an object, so that was no semicolon. And then the next thing we're gonna do is put in a getter. So everything is, of course, named plural in your object scaffolding. So, you know, getters, mutations, state is not states because that's not really proper. It would be the state, getters, mutations, and actions. All right, so we've got getters, and in this particular case, let's say that we're going to get something. We're going to get the state of is true. So to do that, we're going to have a function. So we do is true, and it's not the same variable because we don't want to touch the original variable now. We want to, the only place we want to touch that is in other functions, so that we don't actually mutate the original variable by accident. So we do is true, and like I said, it's a function, and I'm going to write these longhand for right now instead of using ES15. Function. We're going to import state, and obviously if you know ES15 or if you want to do ES6, you're more than welcome to. It's much easier for you to do that than it is for somebody who doesn't understand ES6 or ES 2015 to understand how it works backwards. Anyway, so we'll do that, and then what we'll do is we'll return our state value. And that way, so if somebody calls it from outside, which they would be doing, they'd call it from outside as a getter, and they'd wonder what is true is, and what it's going to do is it's going to return the state of our store, and it's going to return that variable. And I'm using the underscore for no other reason than the fact that it lets me know that that variable is one of my internal variables, and it should never leave, and it should never be used as an input and output system. It's the mutatable variable within the store, and it stays in the store. You can use that. You don't have to. It's whatever's comfortable for you. In that particular case, it's comfortable for me. So we've got our state, we've got our getters, and now we need to be able to mutate the object. In other words, how do we turn is true to false, or toggle it back and forth? So we need a setter or a mutator, and mutations is actually a better word than a setter, because in object-oriented programming we use the terms getters and setters. But our setters really did a lot of validation, and sometimes they mutated the source and mutated the local variables, like is true, and so setters wasn't necessarily the right term at the time. So mutations actually ends up being a better word, and us old school people have to learn that. So we do mutations next. All right, and we're going to want to mutate the original object variable. So what we're going to do is let's use something like toggle, because we're going to toggle the state from true to false. Toggle. And it's, again, going to be a function. These are all going to be functions from here out past state. We're going to pass in state. If we wanted to create a function that, a mutation that had props, had arguments, you just add them after you add state. So you just add the arguments that you would need to operate on your variables or perform what you need to do. And you'll do the same thing under actions. They just kind of work in conjunction with each other, and then the dispatch does the same thing. And I'll put all that together here in just a second for you. So we've got the function for toggle, and what we're going to want to do is simply take the state dot is true. Whoops, I thought that would finish for me if I spelled it right. Is true equals not the state of is true, which is, of course, because it's Boolean, would just turn into false. All right. So now we've got our mutation. We've set the state. We've given ourselves the ability to go get it from another place called our getters, and we've created mutations. Mutations works synchronously. So if you need to do something like a call to an API, an HTTP call, or something that you know, it may take a little bit. Who knows? You can't use that as part of mutation. So we added a secondary layer, and that's actions. And the actions allow us to do things asynchronously and then feed that to the synchronous nature of mutations. So in every case, your mutations and your actions work hand in hand. So we've got this state getters mutations, and now we need to add an action to match the mutation. And the action is actually what the dispatcher calls, not the mutation. That's simply a pass-through, a synchronous pass-through. So we've got actions, and our action can be called the exact same thing, or it can be different, because maybe two different types of actions may still use the same mutation. They may just work on it first. But let's go ahead and just, in this particular case, we're going to do toggle, because that's what we want to do. We want to toggle it, but we don't want to look at the mutation directly. We don't want to get into that. So let's do toggle, and we're going to do a function again, because everything's a function after that. And then we're going to pass the object of context. The context object is part of the store that allows us to access the state, the getters, the mutations. And I'm going to do it the long way first. So we're going to do context. And if you needed to pass from a dispatcher, if you needed to get anything in there that was an argument so that you could operate on something within your mutation, or even your action, you would hand it right here. So you could pass in multiple arguments right here. But we're not going to, because we're toggling, and toggles just don't need arguments. We're just going to make it true, or we're going to make it false, depending on what it is. Okay, so we've got the toggle, and all we're doing here is we're committing that to the mutation. So we use that context, and that context is a fixed object. It's part of our store. You'll always have it in the actions. It's always going to sit there. You can decentralize it. You can deconstruct it using ES215 2015 and deconstruct it and pull out, because really what we want out of that particular object is called commit. I'm going to do it longhand real quick, and I'll show you. We do commit. Sorry, we're going to use context.commit, and then we're going to call the string of the name of the method in the mutation. So just toggle. So what we're doing is this is calling this. You saw how it disconnected. When that's disconnected, you'll see that other one come up. So now we're connected, though this one came up too. We're not calling itself. We're calling this toggle in the mutations, and that's what the context does. It links us to the mutations, and that's it. That's your entire store, and that's the entire control of this particular variable as far as toggling it, getting its return, and setting its initial state. And I understand that if you're looking at this, you're like, well, that's a lot of code for just what could be done in 3 lines. You're going to initialize it, you're going to toggle it, and you're going to get it back. But this creates an awful lot of extra protection. It creates time travel. It creates programming time travel. It creates abstraction. It allows some encapsulation. And if none of these things make sense to you, that's from an object-oriented paradigm. The idea is that it provides a lot of functionality, and it still gets us to where we can abstract our store and use it with any component that we want to, and those won't conflict with each other. Not only can we do that, we can move the state back to a previous action or a previous event with no problem. If we want to move back to a previous event to see if we've got a bug or something like that, and I'll show you how that works. The store allows us to do that, which you obviously can't do in 3 lines of code just by doing vanilla JavaScript. But anyway, let's move on. We've got ourselves a store, and it's got the isTrue variable and every way that you need to interact with that isTrue variable. So let's go ahead and save that, and we're going to inject that. We're going to add that or inject that into our application. And the way we do that is we look at main. In this particular case, you may name it differently. This is just how it's scaffolded out with the Webpack. And you may change that around. Who knows? But we're going to bring that in and import the store. Oops. Oh, and because we named it a constant in our module package, we need to actually pull using 2015 deconstruction. We actually need to pull that out. So that's why I'm putting it in the mustache handlebars, the brackets. So we've got from store. Okay, so now we've brought the store into our main. We've imported it, and now that's it. Now we're in. We have a store. So obviously we haven't done anything to it. We haven't utilized it in any fashion or form, but that's it. That's the store. Now, if I were to do that without all the talking, instead of it taking 26 minutes, it would have taken 3. And if you have that in a template somewhere, such as a text file or a gist, or as a live template, it's 15 seconds and you're scaffolded out for a store, and you're ready to go. So let's go ahead and use it. Let's see how easy it is really to use. So you scaffold out your store, and we want to utilize it. So let's put a VF in our primary application. We're not even in a component. We're just we're in a component, but we're not even in a child component. So if we do this, we're going to name it is true, and that has no bearing. That's completely local variable. In this case, we're going to do it as a computed prop or a computed variable. So if you don't know what computed is, just go look at computed and watchers. They're very similar. But what they do is they watch to see if the value is changed in any fashion. And we're going to want to watch this variable for the store, because if the store changes the variable, it's going to let everything know that it needs to update the DOM accordingly. So we use computed here, and we're going to bring in our isTrue as a function, because it needs to tell us if it's as the function of whether it's true or false. So we do isTrue, and we're going to do old style function. All right, and from here we want it to return the store state. So we're going to do this dot store, and we get the $ store now from our store. It's now injected into the system. So every time you interact with the store outside of the store, so we're in app or main or one of our components down the list, you'll always start it off with the store, however that needs to be, this dot store, or if you have to abstract this because you're in a tunneled into an Axios promise call, then you have to lead this into the it's a mess. Anyway, gotta love this. Anyway, so we're going to return this dot store dot getters, because that's what we're calling, and we're going to return is true, and that's it. And this obviously this is true is the getter is true from our store. It is not. This is true. If I need to change that for any reason, and these become confusing, let me know. One of my problems I always caught was that instructors would use the same variables over and over and over, and you're like, well, does that variable belong to that module or the other module, and is it important? Do they need to be the same? Anyway, this variable is only associated with that variable, so we'll just leave that just like that. It is true 1. And of course, this variable right here is only associated with store. So now we have the abstraction that we need into the store, and we're now pulling it in. If I save this, you know, my page is going to update, and it did, but is true 1 is true because our store is true. It's how we initiated our store. Our store came up, and we turned underscore is true into true. So that's all propagating through now, and you can see it in our store. This is the state of our store. So is true is true. Is true from the getters is returning it's true. So now with our little view inspector, we can look at the app, and it's seeing the computed value, and our store time travel system is kind of seeing that currently everything is true. So it's applied. If that was false, our image would just disappear right here because if would be false. So let's trigger that by adding a button. Let's do just a simple button, and we'll do button, and we'll do I can do it longhand or shorthand. We'll just do shorthand shorthand event for the button. You can do @click, or you can do v on :click, and we'll just give it a toggle me. I just call it toggle, but again, that would be my style of coding, and that would be a problem for some people who are watching this and going, well, does that toggle match another toggle that's in the store toggle? Not at all. This is completely local. So we're just going to say toggle me, and then we'll call it toggle. And let's see where that button shows up. We're going to get some errors down there because we don't have a toggle me function. Let's see, BR. There we go. But we just want to make sure that button doesn't jump around every time I eliminate the picture. So if we put it above, it'll be fine. All right, so now we need a method for that. So this is standard old view, and we're going to name it toggle me. All right, and then in the toggle me, we can pass an event or not. In WebStorm and PHPStorm, one of the reasons I don't just automatically pass the event is because if I don't use it, it gives me a little gray under squiggly sign and says, hey, you're not using this variable. Do you really need it? We'll go ahead and leave it there for now, but sometimes you need it, sometimes you don't. Okay, so toggle me is going to, now this is it. We're going to dispatch to the store and say, hey, store, do what you need to do to this variable, and then transmit that everywhere. So we're going to use the store. So we start with that this. Ooh, my hands are in the wrong place. This dot store, and not thus. Goodness gracious, Rob. Dot store. I've got something else messing here. Let's make sure my E's not messing that up. This dot store dot dispatch. Remember that, dispatch. And then we're going to dispatch whatever the method is, action that we're going to need. So in our store, we're looking for this toggle action. We're looking at this one, not the mutations. So in our app, we're going to dispatch toggle. So basically, what we're gonna see is that let's go ahead and save all that. When we hit the toggle, the image will disappear, and that's simply by the fact that we hit the toggle. That calls the store's action. From the store's action, we go from action to mutation. It mutates the is true to the opposite of whatever is true is at the time, which is currently true, which will make it false. Then from there, we've mutated that to false, and then the getters, triggered by the computed properties, will return false, right? So we've kind of got this round robin. We dispatch to the action goes to mutation. Mutation alters the state, and the computed properties pull from the getters. And we end up right back where we are, and this is true 1, which is pulling the getter is true, will change values, and because it's watching it through the computed property, it will change it. And the DOM will take care of the rest, the virtual DOM, and the real DOM, obviously. And so we hit toggle, and it's gone. And we hit toggle, and it's back. And that's store. That's not using props and emits. That's not. If we had another, well, let's use the store and same variables that we need, and let's put it on a secondary component, because that's the important part, right? The secondary component. So we look at our components, and we look at hello view. Yeah, and let's just make the whole thing disappear with the same toggle button from that's altering the store. We'll just add vShow. And we'll do it the same thing. We'll do is true 2, so that we don't keep crossing over variables and nobody thinks that one variable needs to be associated with the other one. This one is completely local to this component. Okay, so again, computed property, computed. And then same thing, we're going to do the whole is true 2 this time, so we can match. This one matches. It's going to be a function. We're not passing the event. And so from here, we need to return the store state. So this dot store dot getters dot is true. Now that is true is the one that's in the store. So you don't want to confuse that with the is true 2 that is local. Okay, so now you've got that. That's it. You're not dispatching anything because you're not changing anything. That's happening in the previous or other component. But this one is going to obey the laws of the store with just that. So now if I hit toggle and it goes to false, I'm going to lose my image. And I'm going to lose the entire component visibility, because show is going to turn into false. And the only thing that's going to be left is the button, which I get to toggle again and turn it right back on. So now we've got off. Whoops. Oh, always leave your bugs in so that they see that you're not infallible. Okay, so I forgot my comma right there. Let's bring that back. Lost its poofness. Anyway, yeah, so toggle gets rid of both, brings it back in. But notice on the right-hand side now, see, you've got your store. And so if you didn't understand what time travel was, you're seeing it now. Every single time I do it, it stores the state of how it was previously. And you can go back through this, and you can, no matter what's happening, you know, we're not doing simple toggle. Maybe we're doing some calls and some much more complex mutations. And we need to find out where a particular mutation may have caused a bug. You can time travel, as it says, to this state. You can revert to this mutation and eliminate all other mutations past that. And of course, you can commit that, and that would commit it as the base mutation. But if I want to time travel back to this, or this, or this, it's as simple as that. And that's what the store allows you to do. That would obviously be real problematic if you're just doing your 3 lines of you know, let this equal true, a real quick inline function for toggling, and then I don't know, whatever the 3 lines were I said earlier. Anyway, so that's it. You've got your store state, of course, your events. No events. I'm not sure. I have to look into that. Why we're not seeing any events? That I have to see what that component's actually looking for in events. But But we've got a root application. You know, you can see that we've got the is true one, which is local to the app component. We've got the whole store here, which is showing us that the state is set to true, the getter is set to true because of the state, and the mutation type of toggle, which doesn't have a payload. Remember, we started. Let me show you that real quick. If I wanted to look at app view and I wanted to dispatch something with a payload, all I'm doing is adding the payload, so that I can add the bool. I can add true, right? And of course, this doesn't care because it's not going to use it. And we can go to the store and we can say, hey, in my actions, I'm looking for a bool. I'm looking for a variable. I'm just going to call it bool. And it just doesn't care because we're not using it. And then, you know, if I want to toggle the bool down, you know, then I can bring it in from my context commit to the sorry, bool bool bool. There you go. So now we've got all three of them working in action. We dispatch it, dispatch it. It comes into the toggle function in the actions. The actions then context commit it out into the toggle in mutations. Toggle mutations brings it in, and you know, we do with it whatever we want to. You know, who knows? In this particular case, we're just doing toggling, so the bool just doesn't make any sense. Anyway, I hope that was helpful. It was a little bit longer than I expected, but I hope it was thorough, and I hope that everything made sense. If you have any questions or you need anything further explained, you didn't like anything, I talk a lot and I talk fast. The beauty of video is you can stop it at any given time and just look at stuff. And you can even slow it down. But if you have any questions, you need anything else with the basic implementation, that's the beauty of this system is just throw in the Vuex into your view. It should really come into the CLI. I don't know. You know, they give you the router and they scaffold out the router, but they don't give you Vuex. I don't know why, because I can't imagine building almost any application without having a store. Now, when I didn't understand it, sure, as I avoided it, eat the frog. But now that I understand how the store works, I can't live without it, and I wouldn't want to try and write props and emit events and put them into a parent to bring them back down another child just to keep the two in sync is insane to me now. Of course, that's what I was doing, so that's why I wanted to give this out. Again, if you like it, great. If you don't, put it down. Give me a comment why you didn't like it, or if you did like it. Hopefully I can help in some way, and I can make these better based on your constructive criticisms. Alrighty, thank you.